Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of 1220 Cooking UK. I'm Izzo, and today, to celebrate the fact that we've reached over 100 subscribers, I wanted to show you my favorite go-to dish whenever I have friends over. This is a great dish that is super versatile. If you need to make it vegan, you can make it vegan. And it's risotto ai funghi, so mushroom risotto. And I'm really excited to show you. I'm pulling out all the stops because I can. Let me show you what our ingredients are. To start off with, this is optional, but I've got some beautiful dried porcini mushrooms. I've got risotto. This version is carnaroli, but you can also use arborio. It's very important to have the right rice for your risotto. I've got some mushrooms that I cooked last night. If you want to see how I cook them, then I'll put a link to how I cook my mushrooms. I've got some extra virgin olive oil straight from Tuscany. I've got some porcini mushroom stock cubes, 1 onion, some Parmesan cheese, DOP, so you know it's original. And I've got my umami paste. Also, I will link how I made this. What's the first thing to do? The first thing to do, I've got my dried porcini mushrooms, so I need to rehydrate them. So I'm going to get some warm water, put it in a bowl, and put my mushrooms inside. So if you're lucky enough to have some dried porcini, which are from Tuscany, then let me show you how to use them. What you do is you need to rehydrate them in lukewarm water. And I'm only taking a bit because this has got a strong flavor. There we go, I'm going to stop there. It was about a few handfuls. And what we need to do is rehydrate them. But because these are actually wild, they can have some dirt. So what you need to do is not stir this. Hydrate them in the water. Try and put a weight on top. So I'm using this small plate. And leave them there for about 10-15 minutes. And then when we take out this delicious broth that's been created, because this is going to be flavored water, we're going to take it out, but avoid taking out the dirt. The dirt needs to go all to the bottom. So I'll show you how to treat it. While I'm waiting for my beautiful broth to come to life, as you can see, it's already changed color. I'm heating up a pan over medium heat, and I'm going to put some extra virgin olive oil inside. And while I wait for that to warm up, I'm going to chop up my onion. 1 onion, remember? And I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to cut some slits. Try not to cry. And then I'm going to chop. I'm not too worried about the size. But I obviously don't want to make them huge. And I'm going to cook these down and soften them up. I've completely chopped up my onion, and now I'm going to put it in my pan. I'm not worried if it's not hot enough because these need to wilt. So let me pop them in. And as usual, I'm using my trusty wooden spoon, which is probably older than me. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm stirring up my onions in this warm olive oil. It's gonna come up to heat. I'm gonna let these heat up, and then I'm gonna put salt in them. The salt will do 2 things. The first thing is going to give some flavor, obviously. The second thing, it's going to help to wilt my onion because it extracts water from the onion. And what we're doing up to now is the base for every risotto. So I just happen to be making a mushroom risotto. But if you've got asparagus, peas, whatever kind of ingredient that you're using, whatever is the main star, you do the same process, just obviously with whatever you're using. So it's been about 10 minutes, and as you can see, our mushrooms are ready. They're soft, they're mushroom texture, and they've created this beautifully colored broth, which is part of the stock that we're gonna use for our risotto. So what do we need to do? We need to now use our best tool, which is our hand, and scoop them out. And while we scoop them, give them a little squeeze, because they're like sponges. So we give them a little squeeze and put them on our chopping board. Trying not to agitate the water, because, as I said before, at the bottom there can be some dirt. And this is something we want to avoid in our dish. So now we're gonna chop them up. So we've made a little cigar shape and we just chop them up. I'm not too worried, they can be chopped roughly. Okay, and I'm gonna now add them to the rest of my mushrooms because they will go together in my risotto when the time comes. I don't know if you can hear this sound, but the onions are cooking. So now I'm going to add a little bit of salt. And not too much, because what I want to do is add other flavor layers. So I want to add the stock that has a stock cube as well in it, so that's got a lot of salt. I'm going to add my umami, which packs a punch. So you don't want to over salt at this stage. Also Parmesan cheese, which is a main umami giver. Also that one has a lot of savory flavor. So now I've added this salt, my onions are going to wilt slightly, not brown, wilt. Our onions are wilting, and now let me show you how to use this stock. I've got the pan that I want to heat my stock in, and I'm going to use a sieve, just to catch any unfriendly bits just in case. And slowly, I'm going to pour this mushroom stock. Slowly, because you don't want to upset the bottom just in case there is any dirt. And let's see. So you can see maybe in the back there's a little bit of dirt, but that's not going to go into our stock because we're going to stop before we get there. Perfect. So to my beautiful mushroom liquor, I'm gonna call it, I'm gonna add 2 of these stock cubes. If you can't find mushroom stock cubes, not a problem, use a vegetable stock cube. It's fine. If you've made a vegetable broth, then use your vegetable broth. If you've made a chicken broth, use your chicken broth. Use the broth that you have. Obviously, I mean, a mushroom broth is more appropriate for this dish as it's a mushroom risotto. So I'm going to pop in my 2 stock cubes. And then I'm going to place this on a low heat close to my pan. So let's get over there. I'm going to stir my onions as well. And I'm going to let that heat up with the lid on. My assistant will help me. And let that warm up, and I'm going to stir it up and make sure that the stock cube has melted. And I'm going to give that a taste, because that is what adds most of the flavor to my risotto. The broth is so important to risotto. So now we get to my favorite part, which is opening my vacuum sealed pack of risotto rice. I call it risotto rice because you can use two types. One is carnaroli, which is what I'm using now, and the other one is arborio. It is very important to use the right rice because this rice in particular, these two types of rice, have a lot of starch. And starch is what makes your risotto creamy. Starch and love, in actual fact, because you need to stay behind your risotto, take care of it, stir it continuously, and add broth. And that's why it's a dish made with a lot of love, time, and patience. But afterwards, it's completely worth it. So there's no cream, there's love and starch. So let me open these. You can hear the air escaping. And what I'm going to do is raise the temperature because I had turned it down. My onion is perfect. It's wilted. It's not brown. It's not crispy. It's wilted, which is very important. So now an important stage is browning your rice. You coat it in the oil. So let me put almost this full cup. And you stir it into that oil. And you coat it with oil for at least 1 minute. While we're letting that brown, let me tell you a little bit about wine. Risotto, usually what you do after you've done this browning stage, you would sfumare, so you would put a little bit of wine in here just to kick everything off. And in Italy, there's a saying, riso cresce nell'acqua e muore nel vino, which means rice grows in water but dies in wine. And what that means is that the best way to cook rice is to always add a little bit of wine. But this is optional. I'm obviously going to do it because otherwise my ancestors will come and get me. But that's obviously optional. Remember to use good wine. The idea of, oh, it's bad wine, I'll use it for cooking, is wrong. Whatever you put in gives flavor. So use good wine. So I'm using an Italian Pinot Grigio because that's what I have. If you have it at room temperature, even better. Mine's chilled because I was going to enjoy it later, but what can we do? Nothing's perfect right now. So I'm going to add a few glugs of wine. And this kickstarts everything. And now the love and the stirring begins. So now we need to add our stock little by little and stir it constantly. You cannot leave, don't leave. So I'm going to open this. I like to keep my stock at the same temperature of my rice, so there's no shock in temperature. And let's start adding some stock. So if you're ambidextrous, which I'm certainly not, this will be much more easier for you. So what we do is we add 2 ladles of stock, just because my ladle's quite small, and stir. And you keep on stirring until the stock is absorbed. Then once it absorbs, you add again 2 ladles of stock. And this occurs until you finish all your stock. And if your rice isn't cooked yet, you add some water. And this process takes about 20 minutes. And you can see already there's starch creating on the bottom. And this is all happening because I am stirring. You'll see the rice will gain the beautiful color from that stock. And if you're making, for example, saffron risotto, it will also get that beautiful color and beautiful smell. At this stage of the cooking, I also like to add some umami paste. And this will add a lot in flavor and in color. And I'll pop the link on how to make my umami paste. Stir that in. So I don't have a Popeye arm yet, but you know, it's getting a bit tight. So we're just over halfway of cooking. And what we're doing is we're not drowning the risotto in broth. We're adding a little bit at a time, letting the rice absorb it. And also we're on medium heat because we want the rice to absorb it and not to evaporate. So because we're just over halfway, I'm gonna add my mushrooms and my porcini mushrooms. Look at those. And we'll continue cooking as normal. We'll stir these through. Look at how good that looks. And then what we do is add some broth and continue to cook as before. So remember, no drowning, stirring, loving, caring, having a chat, having a conversation. I mean, it's your friend for 20 minutes, so might as well tell her the tea. And it's not going to answer back, but it's going to taste good. Whew. So, my risotto is ready. I've tasted it, and it's al dente just how I like it. It took all of that stock, which was about a little bit under 2 liters of stock. And now, because my mother is a northern lady, she likes to finish off the risotto with butter. And adding a little bit of butter will make it smoother. But as you can see, that is creamy. And no cream was allowed in here. So I'm going to put a little bit of butter, just because I love my mother. And obviously it adds a lot of good flavor. And I've obviously tasted my risotto, and because of the stock cubes, because of the salt, because of the umami, it is perfect. And what I'm going to do as well is add some Parmesan cheese, which is umami, which is tasty, which adds a savory flavor and just adds to the dish. And we're also going to add for each individual portion, so remember that. So I've added just a little bit. And I'm stirring it. And as you can see, it's quite a smooth, thick, creamy texture. And you can see it returns to the middle. So this is called all'onda, which means wave style. Let's say ocean wave style. I wouldn't know how to translate it, but that's how you know your risotto is at the perfect consistency. I'm just plating out my portion. You can see the risotto folds on itself. And importantly, once you make it, you need to eat it immediately. So here's my personal portion. I like to taste it before everybody else. This is my mushroom risotto. The early parts are the basis of every risotto. And remember, your main ingredient is love, because you need to put in a lot of love. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.